This is Simon transparently awakening the heart of humanity as we see beyond the lies and open our eyes to realize
this is our time to rise.
Welcome everyone to another Simon Transparently with this beautiful Sexological Bodywork series, and I hope you're tuning into this number 8 episode of the series, having been through the previous ones. If you haven't, and this is the first time, maybe you've been attracted because we have a beautiful guest today, Luzi, joining us. Hey, Luzi.
Hi, Simon. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Really great to have you because I've been observing you on the interwebs for some time and visionally watching your progress and your journey and the way that you inspire so many with your transparency and your dedication to this work. And it's lovely to make this next acquaintance. And good morning or good afternoon or good evening to you, Sai.
Hello, Luzi. Nice to meet you. And hello, brother Sai. Nice to have another episode of this amazing Sexbod series. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Exactly. We're quite alive already. We've just been having a little sharing. So just for those tuning in, I'm just going to drop it on you because you might want to go back. So episode 1, we really covered the foundations of sexological bodywork. Episode 2 was the 4 pillars of sexological bodywork with the breath, movement, sound, and sacred or conscious touch, whichever term you like. Then we explored into the genital mapping, and then from there we went to the question of why does sexological bodywork matter? And we explored in there. And then we went to the magic of therapeutic touch. These hands connect us to our hearts, and we learn to connect our bodies with our hearts. And then from there, we moved into the, where did we go? Yes, the therapies are moving erotic energy through the body. And then we invited a very dear friend of Simon and somebody that inspires me, Didi, that is the founder of the Sexological Bodywork Center in Zurich. And we covered many things in that, but really it was mainly about the core erotic theme. So there's your little topics to inspire you. And today, Sai, what are we exploring today? You can lead us in with that.
Yeah, thank you for this little summary. I was also just scrolling through the podcasts on Spotify here and saw all the magic we already have created. And a question that came up through the preparation of the training in South Africa, and I also hear that sometimes in Switzerland: why should I join a training if I can't make a living out of it afterwards? So the question that came up through the prep is, can I make a living from being a bodyworker? And I think it's a very interesting question. Can we make a living, or can you, when you are interested in sexological bodywork, can you make a living from being a sexological bodyworker? And that's, I think, why we have Luzi here today too, because she is a bodyworker. Are you a sexological bodyworker? Maybe you even want to introduce yourself a little bit to the people who are listening to us today.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, happy to be here and chat about something which I'm so passionate about. So yeah, I'm a sexological bodyworker, sex coach, sex educator, and this is what I do, and I make a very comfortable living out of it. That's kind of the headline. And I guess to go into your question, for me, maybe to reframe the question slightly, it wouldn't be, can I make a living out of being a sexological bodyworker, but can I make a living out of my passion? Because this is what it is about for me, So I feel like sexological bodywork is one modality out of many modalities that we could study that take us towards inhabiting ourselves and our aliveness more fully. So it's like whatever tool you want to use, you might want to use sexological bodywork as a tool, which is the tools that we've chosen, but there are other tools. But what are you being drawn to? What are you being passionate about? Because that is the thing, your own aliveness and your own passion, your own juice for what you're doing. It's infectious. That's what people are coming to you for, and that's what they feel you for, and that's why they want to buy your services and your offerings. It's your passion.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's a beautiful piece to bring in. And actually, Sai, that kind of weaves in why I am so inspired by you, because this is actually became your passion as well. So that kind of resonates a lot, huh?
Yeah, I can completely hear myself in these words, and I wrote it down here. Uh, you said it right. It's my passion too, and I'm very excited to meet someone who is like on fire too about this profession. And on the other side, you also said something very important for me, that is sexological bodywork is just one of the modalities who can be a passion, um, and make a living out of it. And yes, we will probably hear through the podcast that there are other um, little inputs from other modalities, or it's not just one on one, it's also doing something in a group. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what
Yeah, that's
unfolds
lovely.
today.
Yeah, that's lovely. Maybe this kind of touches on what we already, me and Lucy already spoke about briefly when we were making this happen. Maybe we can just dive straight in there, but just to kind of offer it in. So, sexological bodywork, the training in and of itself offers a wide array of different practices that you could sugar pick, which ones you like, right? Or cherry pick, sorry, the saying goes. No, cherry pick the ones that you like. And actually, that's what I did. As much as I'm not, because I'm nomadic and I travel around a lot of places, I'm not having a studio where I'm just focusing on, the phenomenal bodywork practice itself. However, I work and travel and share, as many of you know, listening, I took the orgasmic yoga, as it's termed, and me and Simon spoke about that, and really like, made that my own because it touched me so deeply, and then started to share that with the world, and now continue to share that through what is called soul pleasure. And I maybe pass that over to Lucy because I know that you did something similar, and also you've expanded yourself. So I'm going to give you the space to share a little bit about how you've taken sexological bodywork or these tools and share them with the world.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And I get that question a lot as well from people who take the training or want to take the training and ask me, how did you do this thing that you're doing now from doing the training? Because it's, there's been an evolution, obviously. And I feel like with anything, it's a bit of a creative practice of how are we choosing to use those tools, weave them into our lives, and weave them with the gifts that we've already got. Obviously, we're all three totally different human beings with our different skill sets and different pain points and different struggles that we've moved through. So, my biggest struggle was to self-care and love myself and accept this body and inhabit this body and be in this body. So equally for me, when I discovered, orgasmic yoga, self-pleasure, self-nourishment, like resourcing this body, that for me was so transformational for my own evolution that of course, the biggest wound became the medicine. Of course, that's the thing that I was like, oh my God, I found the key to something. I feel like I found something that I've been looking for my entire life and didn't find through talking therapy and through psychedelics and through plant medicine and through Vipassana. But I finally found it through that quality of somatic practice where my entire body was invited. So I took that and also made that my own and wove it with, I've got a framework that orients around the elements of nature because that's a big part of my being. I live in the forest and I talk to the trees and make love to the rocks. That's part of me, which is a unique quality of my being. So this has then informed the modality that I've created around that. So it's the little practices and tools and techniques that we're learning as part of the sexological bodywork training. It's almost like steps in a dance, right? And then it's up to you to like, how do you interpret this and how is your body and your being and your psyche wanting to move with that? And there are no limitations to your creativity, to what you can, make out of that. And so, when I discovered self-pleasure before I started studying sexological bodywork. And then when I started studying it, I was like, wow, now I feel like this practice is being so enriched by all of the tools that I'm learning. And because I live in a tiny little village at the edge of the forest in Austria, I also knew it wasn't going to be practical for me to see one-on-one clients, one-on-one
Mm.
bodywork clients. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, how am I going to find the thing which I'm so passionate about and adapt it in a way that I can still work with it and let it come through me as something which I know wants to come through me. I'm going to find a way. So I started working with people online and did one-on-one coaching, and I adapted all of the practices that, we would do with my hands touching their body, with them touching their own body. So I basically started teaching them the modality that I don't think they would have learned maybe to the same depth if I had touched them. And I'm not saying that, this that one-on-one sessions where someone else touches their bodies aren't necessary, because I get regular bodywork sessions. I think they're absolutely essential to be held by another being. But I found a way to actually transmit this wisdom to support people in coming more into their own verticality and their own self-holding, which was precisely the thing that I felt like I was missing my entire life. So actually through my life circumstances, which felt limiting at first, like, oh God, I can't have a practice, I can't see one-on-one clients because no one bloody lives here. It was like, I'm going to find a way which actually suits me better, because this was my biggest learning. And from doing that, from doing the online one-on-one coaching where I was teaching people somatic tools to work on themselves, I then quite naturally started opening into group containers, because you realize you track patterns, right, with one-on-one clients, and in the end, we're all different, and we also not. We all have the same struggles in some way or the other. So the body of work emerged quite naturally, because yeah, I just put together all of the data that I was gathering from working with one-on-one clients. And then of course the next steps was doing in-person retreats, because everyone's like, this is incredible. When can we work with you in person? So it's almost like you couldn't have planned it, but it was my passion and commitment to this work, which then just kind of presented itself to me with the opportunities quite naturally. And I feel like if there's an openness and a willingness to adapt these tools in a way that suits you, then life will come and support you and open some doors as well.
Mm.
This is something I could just listen for hours. You know, it's like when you what happened to me is like everything makes so much sense right now when you share it, about your own struggles, you found these modalities and all this. And on the other side, I know there were many very difficult moments. So just for the people who listen today, it was not always an easy flow, probably, but we see and feel, maybe I felt the potential out of this, what can unfold. And then it makes so much sense. And some elements you actually shared is the modality. What I discover again and again in sexological bodywork is we get small little practices, and they are every time different, but we have something we can hold to, and we can go, you said it too, very deep in these practices. And it doesn't even need to be in the same room with the practitioner. For me, that's magic, This is absolute magic, because usually we have to go somewhere, we have to commit, we have to drive somewhere. But this is just everywhere available if you want it. And of course, if you want to be touched, then there is a meeting needed, but there is so much possible without that. Sai, you are doing it with Go Touch Yourself, or with your new um, um,
Soul
Soul of
pleasure.
Pleasure.
Mm.
Exactly. I actually also did that because I'm traveling all the time, and I have my own self-love online course, what I did in German, because there is not so much available in German, and it's very successful, and you are doing the same thing. So it's so lovely to meet as this group, with having this modality in our backpack and sharing it with the world. And of course, there's so much more. So thank you
Mm.
so much for sharing your own little journey.
Yeah, super lovely. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, is there anything else that pops up, Lucy, from what you just shared? I know when we share a little, there might be like something else arising now. Anything else popping that you feel you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess what I feel really passionate about, I'm really observing the kind of let's say, sexuality culture, um, or the, the different communities and the places where they meet. And I feel like, we've got so many different pockets of like the neo-tantra, the ista, the more kind of like somatic based, the sexological bodywork, and
The
I'm
temple
observing
culture.
the temple culture exactly, and I'm observing these different pockets, and I kind of feel at home in most of them. I feel like I've got, a limb in each of them in some way. What I do feel really, really passionate about is the mysteries of the body. I feel like working with somatics is such a mysterious and magical process, where we
Mhm.
work with these little tools. I'm sure you've touched on them before, something like body focusing, going into conversation with the somatic mother tongue of the body, through like a little growl or a little tingle, and just the whole world that kind of evolves and emerges from really tuning into these micro moments of somatic experience. And I feel like this is something that I want to see more of in the world of mystery schools and temples and neo-tantra, which of course also works, with sexuality. Of course, this is the absolute principle of, meeting the polarity of spirit and sex and spirit and matter. But I feel that these spaces sometimes lack the nuance of really going into the intricacies of the body and really slowing down and really listening and really giving space to the self-organizing intelligence of the body to unravel and show itself. And so this is why I'm so passionate about people who are, interested in the erotic mysteries and temples and all that kind of stuff. I really encourage everyone to do, to start training and educating yourself about somatics, and sexological bodywork is one modality that offers that, because there's a different lens that we're working with, where we are learning to experience the body from the inside out, and where I found, there were certain layers in my beings that I couldn't touch through another ISTA training or through another, big transformational process, but it was the slowing down and the really coming into like almost like the core of each atom of my being through some of the practices that we learned in sexological body work, where a whole other mysterious world unfolded that I didn't have access to before. So that's something that I feel really passionate about.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, you open up a whole spectrum of possibilities and areas of exploration there. But I love the words you're using. And maybe I'd like you to continue with what was popping when you said, I love this idea of polarity of spirit and the mystery and this idea of experiencing the body from the inside out, which I find is fascinating because it's so vast, right? When we start to touch ourselves, I always say that I feel like I'm so at the beginning, and I still feel so conditioned in my own ability to express myself or to ask for what I want, to be clear on my boundaries, to be able to explore. Like now I touch myself in ways when I think if people saw me, they'd be like, wow, you touch yourself so much. But like for me, like it's still like I'm still exploring so much. It's like each time I touch myself, there's something new. It's not like, oh, I'm touching my forearm. Every time I'm touching myself, it's like for the first time. And then I still feel very vulnerable and how to say lost on some level with with how much is there, if that makes sense. So I'd love you to speak to that briefly and just touch on, if you will, the fear that people have around the idea of mystery or temple and coming into these spaces. And then unfortunately, I think I speak always from my own experience, we see them as they are and we go, well, what's that? That's just another sex party, or oh, that's just following these same old conditioned ways of wanting to get my needs met in a, let's say, slightly unconscious, maybe a little bit dysfunctional, some shadow way. And actually, now I'm not going to go back, you know? Whereas what you're inviting and what I see how you write about it and you share is like, you know, it's about slowing down, softening. Like we, you know, it's not about getting anywhere. But anyway, that's what comes up. Please touch on that if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this is why working with the body can be so terrifying, right? Because it's where's the end? When do I get there? Where is the goal? When have I solved everything and like worked everything out and everything just makes sense? Like when do I get there? And the beautiful thing is you won't ever. And this is part of the magic that it's just this is an adventure, it's an exploration. And I feel like somatics, working with the body, self-pleasure, orgasmic yoga, however you want to frame it. This is dancing with a mystery through matter, through the flesh and blood and bones of this body. And there's only ever more layers and more data and more space and juice that we're touching on, but it's never going to be finished. And I feel like this is it's a practice of like ultimate surrender and curiosity and creativity. And in a way, this is why I'm also so passionate about self-pleasure as a practice. For me, this is the art of being alive, the art of being human, which is not about, ticking the boxes and now I've got this done and da, 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 but it's like a forever changing, unwinding, deepening through the many layers that are there. And of course, for most of us, before we can get to the enjoyment of that, we're most likely going to hit some quite solid layers of pain, of resistance, of lack of trust, of armoring in the body, of numbness. And this is kind of part of this journey that, yes, it never ends. And the kind of initial struggle and difficulty that we might feel will loosen up and will soften. And that doesn't mean that then it's done, but it just means now you can start dancing, and again, with creative practice, I feel like, in the beginning, maybe we're learning a dance and we're stumbling around and feeling a bit stiff. And how do I even do that? I remember when I first started practicing orgasmic yoga, and I was like, I've got my finger in my arsehole and I'm kind of like shaking and making weird noises. And it's like, this feels so chaotic. Like, what is going on? Am I doing this right? Like, what is happening? And of course,
Mm,
with time, you learn to weave the touch, the breath, the sound, the movement, the
mm,
awareness, the posture. You weave it all together and it
mm,
becomes elegant, and it becomes a joy to be able to do it. And it doesn't become that thing anymore where you're like, you're breaking your brain trying to work it out. But this is also part of the process of meeting all of the layers of conditioning that you've just touched on, both on a consciousness level and on a somatic level, to soften into them, to meet them with a lot of compassion and love. And eventually we can start dancing if we stay there. Because also, of course, this conditioning, these limiting beliefs, the somatic armor, they're also gatekeepers, right? They're
yeah.
also the thing that is between ourselves and this limitless potential of our creative expression, of our ecstatic potential, because we've got access to that. We all had access to that when we were children. At some point, there was a fluidity and an innocence of just being with that aliveness, and most of us have had some layers put on top of that. So now we got to do the work, which takes a bit of discipline and a bit of practice to move through these layers again, to then tap into that source again. But that source is always there. It's not, we don't even have to struggle. Of course,
Mm,
there's going to be moments of it being painful and hard, and we're going to have to stay there and meet this resistance and stay present. But also it's all in there, and it's just up to us, when are we willing to move towards that. And this is also what I find really exciting, because yes, this is deep shadow work that we're doing, and we are meeting trauma in the body most likely when we start moving into these practices. And there is also a joyfulness and a lightness that we can invite in, because we are working with pleasure, so it also gets to be fun and it gets to be nourishing, and it doesn't have to be so serious. So it's deadly serious and it's not serious at all. And this is the kind of polarity that we're also
yeah.
playing with.
Yeah, I say it's seriously fun. Sai, please, if anything pops for you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Lucy, for your passion and for your
yeah,
sharing.
again, I can just listen here. It's like listening a podcast and making a podcast at the same time. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Um, what came up for me is you framed it beautifully, beautifully. And what I discovered in my journey is at some point it actually started to make fun to explore. But at the beginning it was just difficult, heavy, uncomfortable. I was like, wow, no, again. And I'm so grateful I could actually find that spot of when the curiosity sparked, and I can see that in you so clearly now. And I also heard it through your story that at some point you kind of like, let's just do it. Let's dive into it and explore that. And I want to know everything, and I always feel so grateful when people have that in a training, in a workshop, in something that they feel like, oh wow, I want to know more, because then the aliveness comes out of human beings. And it's such a great moment when they discover that, because also you haven't covered that right now, but for me to share it, it's actually not easier to do the practices and to discover or to experience the pain, but I got used to it. I kind of know how to deal with it. I would even
Mm.
call it like an emotional flexibility I gained over time, And you can also, like with your metabolism, you can be metabolism flexible. If you don't have food for a moment, you don't starve and you don't get hangry. So you learn, and it's the same with the practices. You get like emotional flexible. Okay, now I know how to regulate myself. Fuck, I don't have to just explode in that moment. And I feel like this is something I gained a lot after that moment when I discovered my curiosity about myself. And I think you
Mm.
framed it beautifully in that what you just shared, how that can unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you just shared, Simon, and I guess it kind of weaves back to, this modality in a way, teaching us how to do life in some way, and self-pleasure being about the art of life, because obviously pain's not going to stop. We're human, right? So like trauma, pain, grief, loss, it's all part of this human experience. This is what we signed up for when we landed in this body, and there's no way to avoid that. We're going to lose everything that we love eventually. So what are we going to do about it? We're going to increase our capacity to be with the intensity of that pain. And by doing that, we're increasing our capacity to be with the intensity of joy and bliss and ecstasy and pleasure, because essentially they're the same thing. They're just different qualities of aliveness moving through us, which are part of this existence. So we might as well equip our bodies and our system and expand our nervous system capacity to be able to hold all of life, to be able to live it fully. And I feel like this is exactly what we're doing. There's almost like, with having been a lot of focus on expansion of consciousness, I feel like in the evolution of humanity, I feel like now it's time for the body and the nervous system capacity to catch up, so we don't get caught in these limiting survival patterns which are still etched into our nervous system, but we're learning a way to become more artful and more skillful in weaving the connection between what we already know
Mm.
in our consciousness and actually letting it sink down into the body and being able to open the body and hold more life and not collapse into the fears which we might still be holding from, however many thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's like, yeah, reptilian brains are great and we need it, and also learning how to communicate with it and to soothe it when we need to.
Mm. I know you call one of your programs juice, but that's juicy that you just shared. Yeah, I guess I want to just echo. It's more echoing, no? That I often talk about, I think what you're talking about here, which is wonderful. I often talk about the pleasure threshold. And I love what you're saying here about increasing our capacity to be with what is, right? Because that's ultimately what it is. Like life is, it's happening, shit's burning down, people are getting, violated 24/7. We're in a dominant culture of, often masculine dominated still, and there's a hell of a lot of, I was laughing the other day with my friend because we was like, it's like you wake up and there's kind of like 100 ways that you could die today, but you kind of have to just navigate through that, if it's not the poisons coming from somewhere or, this, that, or the other, right? It's like, how do we expand our capacity to deal with life? And you've said it a few times, the art of being alive. And I think that for me is the answer. If it's through touch, if it's through pleasure, if it's through cultivating life force in order to deal with life, that makes sense to me, right? And I also call the genitals the genital generators. So I call them the genital generators of life force. We don't go to the whole body as a genital. The whole body is a genital. It's not that the genitals are down there. I just call that the sexual center. That's the sexual center. That's the life force generators that can spark the erotic life force. Once we connect to that space and then use our whole body as a pleasure instrument, then we're vibrating life force energy. Then we're listening to the body. Then we're having a different feedback loop with the body, right? The body is communicating to us. And this is what's exciting. And I feel that's where I don't want to even say it's gone wrong or it's that, the other, but that's where when I meet beings, a lot of beings are dead. They're living dead. And that might be you listening as well. And I don't say that to put you down. I meet living dead beings. And through the process of coming alive, through breath, movement, sound, and touch, they come alive, And that's what I call soul online. It's like, get your soul online. Plug your soul in. It's okay, I'm here, So it's like I'm super impassioned and fired up by what you shared, and just really, really appreciate the words that you're dropping as well in terms of expressing that. So I'm like, we could just weave it. We're just flowing right now. If there's anything you want to add there, I kind of also want to bring it into a piece. But yeah, is anything popping for you, brother?
Not really, no. I mean, it's just beautiful to share these words that can show what is possible. And one thing that popped up before was people who say, when will that be finished, And then, are you going to die then, or what? It's like, what are you doing when everything is like resolved? It's just boring then, And you said it now, and you weaved one more thing in that they are already dead. So first learn to become alive, and then let's see, and ride that wave of aliveness, learn to surf. And I think this is what sexological bodywork can do. One of the modalities we have here in our Sexbod series, but of course there are other ones. And it's always good to check in what works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Ground it. I'm just laughing here. It's like come alive and die, right? That's what I just wrote. That should be my strap line for the next program. Come alive and then die, Don't die before you die, It's like come alive first.
Well, I mean, how do you want to die, I feel like at some point in my life, I'm more or less halfway now. Let's see. And at some point,
you hope.
Let's see. I just want to die in one moment, and I hope it's so pleasurable, because I was faced with death in the last few years, and I will be, as you said it, Lucy, too. We will always be faced by maybe our biggest fear of death, dying, and I found myself guilty of being happy that somebody could die. And I slowly coming out of that, because that person, it was better that person could die, and maybe it was even very pleasurable. I don't know, But this is a whole other topic we would go in with death, and maybe
we could do it. We could do it. We could do it. We're doing an extended series called "Dying in Pleasure."
Dying with a big bang.
We're all just gonna die. Okay, I'm going out. Adios.
And just the funny part or the interesting part, like the the orgasm, le petit mort, right?
Exactly.
I was just
Yeah.
thinking that as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So it
Yeah.
maybe every time we have an orgasm, we die.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. There is that saying.
Mhm.
Um, Anything popping for you, Lucy? Just what's alive in your soul, your heart, your yoni?
Yeah, I guess it's like this is such a death is such a juicy topic for me, especially in connection with, this kind of work, because I feel like this is what it's about. It's actually there's a quote by Andreas Weber, who wrote the book Matter and Desire, which I highly recommend. Amazing read. And he speaks about learning to die courageously. And I feel like this is also the re-inhabiting our body. For me, it's the same thing as like learning to re-inhabit the land that we're living on, weaving into the ecosystem again, connecting with the roots, connecting with the plants and the trees and the creatures. And so when we are learning to do that again, we are actually noticing that we are surrounded by constant cycles of life and death around us at all times. I mean, I'm looking out
Mm,
now. It's snowing outside, all of the trees look dead, and the leaves have fallen down, and everything is kind of in monochrome colors, and there doesn't seem to be any life because this is the cycle that we're in now. As a woman who bleeds, I go through a cycle of death each month when I bleed. There's a total letting go and surrender to something that drops with the ease like a leaf from a tree when we let it. It's not like the leaf is clinging on, being like, I don't want to go yet, I'm not ready. It's like it just ah drops with an out breath. And this is the kind of quality with which I want to die, with the ease of a leaf falling from a tree, and it's time to release with the softness of a breath and that gentleness of letting myself go and letting
mm,
myself fall into the big mystery. And I feel like we can learn this quality by working with the body, because this is every time we touch our body, every time we breathe with the body and we sound with the body, there's an opportunity to do just that, to totally surrender into this mysterious experience that's not going anywhere, that we don't need to understand, but that can feel so deeply nourishing. The portal of death, eventually I want that to be my opening into the I'm coming home. I'm returning to, the cosmic room, or whatever you want to call it. There's a joyfulness, and this was a chapter of doing this funny little human thing with all of the experience, which was amazing. And now I open into something else. And yeah, in a way, I feel like this modality offers micro experiences of that every day if we can lean into that, which I feel like
mm.
is magical.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Ah, bless you. Ah, my mum, I love her.
Oh.
Coming in and asking me if I want a tea. She's so beautiful. Um, Sorry, that was yeah, there was like, I mean, I could take notes on everything you're saying all day. So it's like, go on, Si, I can see something coming from you.
I'm just blown away, We talk about creation and dying, and this morning I this morning I was sitting outside here on my terrace, and by the way, it's not snowing. It's like deep high summer here in South Africa. And I said to my wife, I want to live every day as I would die next week, or even tomorrow. Tomorrow is a bit quick, but next week, let's say next week. And then sometimes people say to me, you can't think like that. You're not dying next week. No, I know I'm not dying next week, but I want to live like that. If I want to do something, I do it in the moment right now. And what I can feel today from you, Lucy, is you found what I receive is you found that in yourself, even to talk about death very comfortably, and even saying, if I die, I want to go like a falling leaf from a tree. It deeply
Yeah,
touches me when I hear that. That moves my emotions in my body, because I feel like this is deep peace, what you found through your work. what you did and what you faced, and now you actually are able to enjoy every day.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. And maybe also just to give a bit of context, I spent the majority of my life not wanting to be here. I struggled a lot with depression and yeah, a lot of pain in my body. And it was a real reclamation to actually make the choice. I'm fully consenting to being in this body. There's a part of me which has chosen this journey with all of the hardships and all of the struggles. And I could, I could resist life and I could be in this constant struggle of, oh, I don't really want to be here, but I am here. And of course, I have a lot of compassion for um, the subjects of suicide, for example, it's not up to me to judge that in any way, shape, or form because I I have a reference point of that pain of not wanting to be here. But there was a point where it was really that the struggle became so unbearable that it was a bit of a crossroads, It's like, am I choosing to be here or am I choosing to not be here? And I made the choice to be here. And when I did that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna consent to all of it. I'm gonna consent to the pain. I'm gonna consent to the pleasure. I'm gonna consent to the learning, the not knowing. But I will bring every part of my being into alignment with I'm here now and I've got some decades probably left to be here in the grand scheme of things. What is time? What is this, Am I just gonna be in this life with like one foot out the door when I'm going eventually I'll go anyway, so I might as well for the time that I've got make the most of it. And I feel like this has been my biggest gift, there's been such a desperation which I've alchemized into I'm waking up every morning and I'm grateful that I'm alive and I'm grateful that I live in health and that the country that I'm living in is safe and I've got human rights, I live with so much privilege in my life and that gratitude that I feel for that, for my family, for my community, for my health has come from this questioning of do I really want to be here? And I do. And I feel like in the end, the fear of dying is a fear of being truly alive. The fear of dying for me is coming to that moment, that threshold, and feeling like, fuck, I've missed this entire experience. I've been asleep.
Mm.
I haven't actually
Mm.
been here. I haven't felt fully. And so because I don't fear that anymore, the fear of death has, it's not
Mm.
something that pains me because I know that eventually I'll drop into it being like, this was a great wild ride and now I'm done, so take me.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm just going to invite us to have a breath and and a moment of silence if you're both accompanying with that, because what you've just shared then, what Sai just shared, and what you shared before, and then we had that little slight interruption when my mum came in. But I feel that I just want to, with the listeners and with us, just have a minute because, just to give context, is the amount of death that's been shown to me in the last year of our brothers and sisters out there that, have really been going through some brutality. I'd like to just have a moment, yeah, of just really anchoring that. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah, just a minute.
Mm.
Of course.
Ah, wow. Yeah, I feel when so much wisdom and potential is dropped, and just this piece of, yeah, just acknowledging the fragility of life as well. That was what came up for me as you were both speaking, and I can feel emotion just moving, just taking that moment of, yeah, just that, the fragility. And as you were speaking, it was like, yeah, feeling the aliveness and the potential. And you said consent. I consent to being in my body. That really touched me as well. You know, just like so many I meet, they're not having a good time in their body, they're not having a good time in their body. And I think that's one thing with sexological bodywork that helped me to be okay with my body, and even that some might say I have like the way I train, the way I take care of my body, but I was like to love all parts of my body, even the parts that I never used to love, because I would judge them as image or not as I would want them in their perfection, you know. So just feeling that and acknowledging, if you're listening to this and you are struggling in like what Lucy said, like maybe not wanting to be here, or others that have committed suicide, who I've also had friends that have done that and checked out, then maybe this modality, or finding a way to be with your body and to just acknowledge it and be in it, may be the simple yet powerful act that you can offer yourself. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, I feel like that's such a huge piece of belonging, of where do I belong? I feel like we live in a world of so many uprooted people, disconnected from the body, uprooted from their homelands. And I feel like through sexological bodywork, for me anyway, I've learned to belong in my body, and I've learned to reclaim my body as my home. It's like this is
Mm,
the home that my soul chose to live in, and I'm going to take care of this home. I'm going to make sure this home is beautiful and thriving, and it's clean and it's cozy, because this is my responsibility to take care of this vessel and to accept it as, my first and my last companion in this life. This is my friend and my partner that I was born with, and the last one I'm going to be with when I take my last breath. So can I honor this vessel, this temple, this home, this lover in all of the ways that it's serving me every day? I always find it amazing to feel my body's breathing. I don't even have to think about it. My body's digesting food, taking out nutrients, my heart's beating. I don't have to do a thing. I'm getting gifts every single moment. What can I give back to this
mm.
body for keeping me alive? It's a miracle, no, that we get to be in this body.
Oh
It's
yes.
healing itself, it's like when we give the right space, it's like this body is meant to thrive. And I just feeling this awe and wonder towards this body is the most important thing that I've learned through this modality of really just looking with these wide eyes of wonder of a child of, wow, this is my body and it can do really magical things and it can feel so much. So yeah,
Mm.
recommend to everyone to just give that a little taster and see how that feels like.
Lots to chew on. Lots of nuggets for the listeners. I'm aware of the time, Sai, and it's kind of beautiful. We're kind of woven full circle, if you noticed. Did you notice that, with this idea of coming back to the body, the home, and we start with like, okay, how to generate money in the world was like, can we use sexological bodywork to generate money in the world and maybe to make a living from it? And if we went down this path of the modality of sexological bodywork or somatic sex education, and then looking at out into the world of like, wow, how can we take a new sex ed, a new way of embracing ourselves, our sexuality, our erotic body, and all the facets of our aliveness side. Now you see where I'm going with this. And then we came back to the home. And if we're not in our passion, if we don't come back into our body, we don't access our passion. If we don't access our passion, we can't make money. That was my little weave side. And what comes up for you?
Yeah, it's exactly. I think the question is wrong. Can I make a living out of this? I think the question is wrong, you know? It's like, can I fall in love with sexological bodywork? Because when you fall
Mm,
in love, then it doesn't matter and you make a living with it, you know? It's like, I think because you have such a good saying, Sai, when somebody goes to a naked retreat or another retreat or another course, we have expectations, you know? And sometimes afterwards we come out and we say, I got what I needed, but not what I wanted, you know? And it feels a bit the same with this podcast, you know? We wanted to know, can we make a living? But we actually covered it beautifully, but you have to feel it for yourself. Is it something you want to
Mhm.
love? Is it yourself you want to love? Is it sexological bodywork? Is it your work you want to love? And yeah, this is the full circle you were talking about for me. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
one thing I'd
Go,
love to
go,
add
Lucy. Yeah,
to
please,
that
of
as
course.
well is that I feel like, we've got so many offerings these days, right? We've got courses and trainings and retreats and online things and coaching and whatnot. And I'm sure you've all got a reference point of that as well. But I feel like sometimes we will, as being the person who's the service provider in a way, we can fall into old structures of people coming to us and demanding an experience and demanding a result. And you come, I pay you money, and this and that will
Mm,
happen. And there's a sense of entitlement that can come with that if we play into those dynamics, which for me are like old and done and dusted, kind of like, hierarchical power structures that just don't work anymore. And so it's really not about that. We're not offering you any fixed results or things that will
right.
happen, but it's like
Yeah.
we're offering you a way and it's up to you to inhabit this way. And we're offering you a bunch of tools. We're going to lay them out really neatly. We're going to explain how to use all of them. And you're going to have to pick them up and use them. And there's no one who can do that for you. So
Yeah.
can you make a living out of that? It's really up to you. No one can guarantee that you will. Are you willing to put in what it takes to do that? If you feel that burning passion for it, then I guarantee you that you will find a way. But if you're kind of like looking at someone else being so and so said that I would make a living, and now look, nothing's happening, but you're not
Yeah.
applying yourself,
Yeah.
then what to do? So I also just want to, really speak to people's self-responsibility, and it's a big maturation process as well. You're coming into your maturity as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as someone who does something that is radically taboo in the world. You will meet a lot of obstacles. Are you
Mm,
willing to do that? If you
mm.
are, you will be supported. There's a whole global community of people. There's endless resources. We are the sex witches and wizards, who are creating a totally new way of being. And you're welcome to join that movement. But are you willing to put in what it takes? That would be my question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. And actually, there's a little piece here, Sai, which is lovely as well. And I love you said I love we got what we want and we reframed the question. But the piece you share there, Lucy, it's like I've I've been saying this to beings for many, many years. So, and just to land this, I've been sharing most of my offerings for the last over a decade in what is called the gift culture. And the gift culture is where there's up until some things have a fixed price tag, but many of them don't. They have a invitation for you to learn how to value what is valuable to you. How do you value something that you've received from another that's been given to you as a gift? And Lucy spoke about it earlier. We're given gifts constantly. Life itself is pouring gifts on us all day long. So, I went a way that's so how to say far out of the capitalistic models, you could say, right? And I still navigated myself for the last 12 to 13 years in an abundance, prosperous life. Yeah. Some days not even knowing where money would come from, and some days having 300 to 400 euros in my bank account. And I have navigated, and the life I've led for the last 12 years, 13 years. I mean, my whole life has been just one of epicness, but the last 12 years have just been phenomenal. And I haven't had an accountant, I haven't had a business model, I haven't had mentors, I haven't had any of that. So I just want to throw that seed out there. But what drives me is a deep, deep commitment to a cause. And that cause is the motive that gives me motivation. It's what wakes me up. It's what gets me out of bed. It's what drives me. It's what gets me on my mat. And that is love. That is the evolution of humanity, rising out of a density of fear and closed stuckness and distortion and misogyny and everything else into an alive, awakened humanity. That not only gives me goosebumps, but that pays the bills.
Amen. Yes, I feel you. Mhm. Yeah, I'm co-signing all of that.
Yeah, it feels complete. I'm so grateful we had this moment today together to share the why we are so passionate about something, and there are similarities. And one thing I would add to what you just said, Lucy, is, are you willing to support and walk on the side of a person who wants to change? This is what I do. I'm not showing them the path, but I take their hand and I'm walking with them when it's scary, when it's uncomfortable, because I know it works. And this is what I committed to in my life. I support when they want. If they don't want, we just chill out. I'm happy anyway. But if they really want to run, I run with them and I have to change, and then we celebrate it. So this is what sexological bodywork is for me. Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Sai. Ah, any
Now
last
I have
words, Lucy,
goosebumps.
yeah, when we get the tingles of truth, we know at least we've touched on some part of the mystery.
Yeah.
Some part of the mystery is with us. Yeah, any last words, Lucy, that anything that's in your heart, or anything you want to share just to those listening, or
Yeah, I just feel really touched and really grateful for this conversation, and really grateful to feel both of your juice and your dedication and your commitment. And I'm so happy to hear, Sai, as well, that you are, you've got the training in South Africa. I'm so happy to hear about all of the amazing offerings that you've got, Sai, other Sai transparently, Sai. And more, more of this. And I feel like for me, it's so exciting to know. I'm also doing facilitator trainings that there's just like more people. It's almost like handing the tools and
yes,
the modality over to more people. And I almost see them like little, like light bulbs kind of like in different communities all over the globe of the potential that comes through that, which really touches me. So I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for your dedication to this work. Yeah, I appreciate you.
yeah, thank you so much. And for everyone, as always, you know how it works on the podcast. I'm sure if you're listening to this one, you've listened to many. So in the footnotes, you will see any links to Luzi, myself, Simon. You can check those out. And ultimately, just it's always about finding your spark. I always say that, like, find the little, maybe something today, just one little thing today sparked something for you, and just take that, and as Lucy said, be curious with that and see what that might bring up inside you. It might lead somewhere. It might give you a little sensation in your body. You might be able to follow your body, see where that's taking you. Let the body lead the way. The Body Holds a Score, which is another phenomenal book. The book that Lucy mentioned as well. What was that one? It's called Matter and Desire. No, was it that?
Yeah, that's right, by Andreas Weber.
Yeah, that will be in the footnotes as well. And if you have any questions for us, fire them over. This has been the eighth episode of our series, Sexological Bodywork. Thank you so much, beloved Sai. I love you so much. I think we're going to have to do another series. This has been so much fun.
Honestly, I just wrote down we do an extra series with something. I can't let it stand here because this is just the roundup, and now we have to celebrate it. It's like the
Yes,
celebration of and the conclusion and the gratitude, and let's see what we will create. I always put one thing on top, and I will make it happen, and it will be beautiful. And
yeah,
also when you listened to us today, and maybe you haven't give any feedback to us about the series, feel free really to reach out to us, to ask other questions, or even share what you experienced through listening. What did it to your body? What feeling was alive? What was present? How did it change your next day or the day you were listening to podcasts? We are so happy to receive all the feedbacks, also when they are not positive or whatever positive means. Just share openly with us, and we are very happy to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said celebration, and I think the divine led us to Luzi, and what a podcast to celebrate. Luzi, thank you so much for your passion, for your aliveness, for your dedication. And I know we always end on so much gratitude, but gratitude is the greatest form of receivership. And really, really shine on, beloved one. You're doing great work in the world. And thank you for bringing some of your spark and passion and aliveness to this closing episode.
Thanks so much for having me.
Dankeschön.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Simon Transparently. This podcast is a call to action, a call into sovereignty, a call to speak our truth and love ourselves fiercely, and for us all to rise up together as love.
This is our time to rise.